Before we get into trivia, it's time to throw it over to Mikey P with your Rangers Ed 150, the fastest 150 seconds in the National Hockey
Ladies and
Podcast
gentlemen,
League.
welcome back to the Rangers Ed 150. We now have all but one playoff spot decided across the entire league, but we're going to have to wait for all 82 to be played until we know those first round matchups. In the West, our playoff teams are as follows. From that Central Division, Dallas, Winnipeg, and Colorado are all in. Winnipeg still has 2 games remaining, while Colorado has 1. The Jets are 1 point up on the Avs with 3 more regulation wins, so in the event of a tiebreaker for the 2 spot in the Central Division, it would go to Winnipeg, and the Jets would maintain home ice advantage through round 1. In the Pacific, Vancouver, Edmonton, and LA hold the 1 through 3 divisional spots, respectively. Vancouver and Edmonton both have 2 games remaining, while the Kings only have 1. Vancouver is 3 points up on the Oilers with 4 more regulations wins, so if the Canucks are able to take 1 point in their remaining 2 games, they will solidify first place. They also have 3 more regulation wins than the Stars, so if Dallas loses their final game in regulation and Vancouver wins out, the Canucks would finish first in the West and face off against the second wildcard team. LA is only 1 point ahead of Vegas for the 3 seed in the Pacific, and with 2 games left to go for Vegas against Chicago and Anaheim, there is a very real chance that Vegas ousts LA for that 3 spot and pushes the Kings down into the wild card. Speaking of that wild card, Nashville has 99 points with all 82 of their regular season games in the books, so if Vegas remains in a wild card position after winning both of their final games, they will move up to wild card 2 and push Nashville, or wild card 1, and push Nashville to the second wild card spot. With all this on the go, there is only one first round matchup in the West that is set in stone, and that is your Winnipeg Jets and your Colorado Avalanche, with the only thing left to play for there being home ice. Now on to the East, where the playoff picture is equally as complicated. As it stands, we know all but one of the playoff-bound clubs, but much like the West, there is only one matchup set in stone. In the Atlantic, Boston and Florida occupy the 1 and 2 divisional spots, respectively, with 1 game remaining apiece. A regulation win solidifies first for Boston, but any tiebreaker goes to the Panthers on regulation wins and pushes Boston to second place, where they will face off against the Leafs in round 1. If the Panthers are unable to oust Boston from that 1 spot, the Bruins will play Tampa Bay and the Leafs will play the Panthers in round 1. In the Metro, your New York Rangers have locked up their 4th President's Trophy and now join the Boston Bruins and the Detroit Red Wings as the only clubs having won this trophy 4 or more times in their franchise history. Just behind the Rangers in the standings are the Hurricanes and Islanders, who have locked up the 2 and 3 spots, and they will face off in round 1. Finally, in that East wildcard, we have 4 teams still competing for that final spot. At the trade deadline, Philly, Washington, Pittsburgh, the Islanders, and the Red Wings were all competing for that spot. And since then, there have been 16 changes to the second wildcard between those 5 teams. Currently, Washington and Detroit both have 89 points. Pittsburgh has 88, and Philly has 87, each with 1 game remaining. Detroit plays Montreal tonight. Washington plays Philly tonight. And the Pens play the Islanders tomorrow. A regulation win for the Caps puts them in, even in the event of a tiebreaker with Detroit. If Pittsburgh is tied with anyone for that spot, the tie will go to the Pens on account of regulation wins. The only way Detroit gets in is if they finish with more points than any other team. They do not win any tiebreakers. And finally, the Flyers can still get in, even though it is a very outside chance, if they have a regulation win and none of the other clubs get any points. So with all that in mind, we have a wild couple of days of hockey coming up, and with the vast majority of round 1 playoff matchups coming down to 81 and 82, be sure to tune in. Until next week, this has been your 150.